Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches English Language GCSE. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Cambridge iGCSE English Language Paper 1, but we're going to focus in on just questions 1a through to e. So that's just the questions that you answer on text A. We're going to be using a real past paper. It's going to be the March 2020 series that you will be able to find online. Don't worry though, I have got a copy of the text in the presentation, so you can always just take a screenshot of it. We're going to focus in on some top tips for dealing with each question, and I will give you some suggested answers as well, just to get you ready and set for your GCSE exam. Let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do is actually have a little look at text A. So this series of questions just goes with that first text, and once you've done it, you can completely move it away. You're not going to need this text again, which is great. So the first text A, tends to be a little bit shorter than the other two. You can see the one that we're looking at here in front of you. This was from the March 2020 series, and it's all about doctors. So the first thing that I would say that you need to do is you need to have a little look at this bit in italics. This is what I kind of call the blurb of the text, like you get on the back of a book. It just gives a little kind of bit of context about what this is. So National Doctors' Day is a day celebrated in many countries around the world, although the date may vary from nation to nation. So we know that this is about National Doctors' Day. Okay, now generally the bit in blurb is normally what the exam board are giving you. It's not actually part of the text itself, so it's not what you would analyse. It's just there to give you a helping hand. Now I would recommend, because there are quite a number of questions and they're guided with line numbers, that you just read this through without worrying about the questions at this first moment. Okay, so just have a little read of the text. I won't read it aloud to you, but you can pause me if you want to read it through. But one little tip I will give you about active reading: so easy when you're reading to kind of read the words but not take it in. So read it quite carefully, like almost imagine you're reading it aloud, and at the end of each paragraph, once you finish reading it, just think to yourself, oh, what was that about? What did I just read there? What information? Almost like summarising it in your head very briefly just as you go. And if you can't do it, then it means that you probably just need to read that paragraph again. Okay? Right, let's get cracking with these questions. So the first question is worth 1 mark. Okay, what is meant to be the purpose of National Doctors' Day? Now, as I said before, the text questions tend to be in chronological order, so we know that it's going to be in that opening. And this is the only question that doesn't give us a line number. Now, it's really important that you actually make sure that you understand exactly what the question is asking of you. So what is meant to be the purpose of National Doctors' Day, as in what is the day for? Yeah, that's what it's asking. So don't just pluck out the first thing that you see about National Doctors' Day. Make sure that you're looking for this. So National Doctors' Day occurs every year. It's meant to bring attention to the service of all doctors, living or dead. Now, this is quite useful. There's a little bit of repetition, but it's not always going to be there. But this clearly tells us what the intention of the day is. It is meant to bring attention to the service of all doctors. So that's what you're going to put in. You could put in all if you want. You don't need living or dead. If you put it in, you'd probably be fine. But let's be fair, you want to get the right answer with as few words as possible. Okay, so that's your question 1. Hurrah, we've got 1 mark done. Now, question 1b has 2 parts, and each part is worth 2 marks. It gives you the line numbers, okay, and that's quite useful because it helps you put the words in context. Now, super important, the exam board emboldens it for you to make it really obvious, so look out, using your own words. That means you cannot repeat the words from the quotation. You need to find synonyms or words or phrases that mean the same thing. Okay, the next thing you've got to be aware of is that each of these are worth 2 marks. That tells you how much you need to say, or how many words you need to explain. So actually, if you look at this, you could split that down the middle. Contribution, individual health. And you might just like to look at it within its context. We should all appreciate their contribution to individual health and medical progress. So contribution might mean what they offer, what they bring, what they give. Yeah, individual health, you need to find a synonym for health. Okay, the well-being, maybe even the fitness of individuals, of particular patients. So you could end up with something like this: what they offer to the well-being of their patients. And that gets you the 2 marks, because what they offer is that bit and the well-being of their patients is that bit. Likewise, to reflect on the well-being of doctors, here we are, but the day may also be a time to reflect on the well-being of doctors themselves. So we need to have something for reflect, to consider, to think. We need something for well-being. Look at that. You can use that one. Health. Yeah. Now, of doctors. Now, it's only worth 2 marks. So in terms of the rules, technically, you perhaps could just get away with doing those 2. But if you could find a synonym for doctors, I'd do it just to be safe. Okay. So something along these lines, to think about the health of the medics. Okay. Medics. If you couldn't find a noun to replace doctors, like medics or practitioners, you could say to think about the health of the people who work in the hospital caring for others. You know, like just try and find some way of doing it. All right, so that's our 2 marks there for 1b. Let's have a little look at 1c. Reread paragraph 2, which is down here. Give 2 ways in which the physical and emotional effects of burnout might affect doctors' attitudes to their work. Now, it's not a question that asks for it to be in your own words, so that means that you can lift directly from the text, okay? But here is the bit where people might slip up. You've got to make sure that you're understanding what the question is asking, okay? It's not just give 2 ways that show physical and emotional effects. It's 2 ways in which the physical and emotional effects of burnout might affect doctors' attitudes to their work. So don't just leap to the first thing you see about physical and emotional effects. It's got to be about the attitudes to the work, okay? So for example, we could have here, demotivated in work that once excited them, and we could have here, detached from their work. You could have also had lower sense of fulfillment. You could probably have had it will have a negative effect on the way they treat their patients. But those 2 are the kind of really obvious ones. If you went feeling drained, they might not give you the point, because that doesn't actually tell you about the attitude to their work. That just says they feel tired. So make sure that the answers you're giving are exactly aligned to the language of the question, okay? Okay, now 1D is split into 2 parts. It gives you 2 chunks of the text. Here we are, paragraphs 3 and 4, and you'll notice it's quite a longer chunk, so you're going to have to use your skimming and scanning skills quite carefully. Skimming and scanning is when you're looking the way that I do it is I put my finger in the middle of the page and then I drag it down and then I flick my eyes backwards and forwards, just looking out for particular words or phrases. They then help me with the question. Okay, so what we're looking for is 2 ways in which hospitals could make things better for doctors. Okay, so I'm not going to read it out loud. I'm going to invite you just to have this moment, pause me, skim and scan, okay, and see if you can find your answers, okay, and when you found them, or if you've got stuck, unpause me, and then we'll go through it. So you'll probably have noticed that there was one really obvious answer, which is the one that I've just drawn attention to here. More reasonable working hours could improve care for all. When you were skimming and scanning, you might have seen the word improve and thought, oh, right, yeah, so this is what's saying it's going to improve life for doctors, more reasonable working hours. But you might have actually struggled to find anything else that was really, really explicit. Okay, and what you need to do in these cases is you need to use your skills of inference and deduction. Okay, now if you look in this area of the text here, exacerbated by double shifts, emotional stress, staying on their feet for hours on end. This is saying what is wrong, yeah? Likewise, hospitals try to cram as many patients into one day as possible. This is saying what is wrong. So by looking at what they're saying the problem is, you can find the solution. So for example, you could say, hospitals could make things better for doctors by having fewer patient appointments in one day, because they're identifying that one of the problems is cramming as many patients in. Okay, you could have also said, for example, with this one, you could have said they need more breaks. Okay, so it's just really, really important that if you can't find the obvious explicit answer, you start reading between the lines. Okay, the second one, explain why doctors can find it hard to ask for help. So again, I'm going to suggest you just pause me, have a little skim through, see if you can find your responses, and then unpause me and I'll be back. So here are the things that I am identifying. So we've got immense pressure to maintain a strong demeanour. We have got stigma is sometimes difficult to overcome. And we have got finding time to seek help will help us. Those are the three things. And again, you'll notice that because it's worth 3 marks, we know we have to explain why doctors find it hard to ask for help. But you'll notice here, we don't have to put it entirely into our own words. We can rephrase a little bit. We're not quoting, but what we are doing is we're just making sure that we have retrieved this information, but you're not going to have to come up with a synonym for every word. So something like this would work. Doctors find it hard to ask for help because they are always expected to be strong. There is a stigma surrounding asking for help, which makes it harder. Furthermore, they have very little time to seek help. So I've just surmised those 3 ideas for those 3 points. Okay, 3 marks, 3 things. Always have that in your mind with this part of the paper. Okay, and then 1e, excuse me, reread paragraph 5, this teeny tiny one. Using your own words. Notice it's in bold. This is the important thing. We've got to have synonyms. We have got to rephrase our answers. Explain why some people could think that National Doctors' Day is not worthwhile. So, perhaps if National Doctors' Day actually meant a day off for all doctors, or more reward than a lunch organised by their employers, it really could make a tangible difference. This is a sneaky one because, again, you have to do a little bit of reading in. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is this. If National Doctors' Day actually meant a day off for all doctors. So what that's telling me is that not all doctors get the time off. Okay, so that's one issue. The next bit is I'm thinking about this, the idea of there being a reward that is a lunch organised by their employers. No offence to any of my previous bosses, with the exception of perhaps one, who was brilliant to go out for lunch with. But generally, you're like, is it a reward to go out for lunch with your boss, or is that just an extension of the work day? It's not a proper break, is it? It's work. It's a work lunch. And then this last one, could it really make a tangible difference, i.e., can this one day actually make any kind of difference? So those are the 3 points that we need to make, but we've got to come up with some synonyms. So we've got day off. Yeah, not all doctors have a day off. So time away from work, a brief holiday. Okay, reward, lunch, employers, treat, meal, boss. Okay, so see what I'm saying? You're going to just have to find a few key words to shift around. So something that looks like this. Some people might not think it's worthwhile because not all medics are rewarded with the time off. It may not be considered a treat to have a meal out with your boss, and just one day is unlikely to make a real lasting change. So here we go. Medics, doctors, time off, day off. Treat, reward, meal out, lunch, boss, employers, tangible difference, real lasting change. Okay, so I've just shifted those words around. Okay, here are my top tips for this paper. I'd say, or for this part of the paper, for 1A to E, including your reading, you're probably going to spend about 20 minutes. Okay, make sure you read that blurb. And I would, sorry, just to go back, I'd almost like mark out the timing. So if your exam starts at 8:30 on the dot, then think 8:50, I need to change, and mark 8:50 so that you know, okay? Read the blurb before you read any of the text so that you can figure out, and read that extract carefully, rereading bits where you need and as you go, and you can reread as you're answering specific questions. You don't have to do things from memory. Read those questions so carefully, yeah? First of all, you're checking, am I using my own words? Am I explaining? Am I just lifting a couple of words from the text? But also check the content. What information do they actually really need? Check the mark allowance to work out how much you need to write, i.e. how many things you need to translate into other words, or how many points you need to make. And if you can't find that explicit information, use your powers of inference and deduction, read around the text in order to find yourself the answers that you need. And if you come across, for example, vocabulary that you just don't know, try and decode it by looking at the context of the sentence and thinking to yourself, what word could work there? And this all to make sense, all right? So just have a go at just doing that decoding. Right. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. Quite often people go 1 to E, oh, that's the easy ones. And so they don't take time to practice. And practice is important because it's worth 15 marks. It's quite a surprisingly weighty amount of the paper. So do look at it carefully. Thank you again. Any questions, drop them in the comments and I will do my best to come back to you. Happy revising.